Hello, I am Dan Meljanian from California, Director of Philanthropy of the Homeschool Community Foundation, and I'm here with HCF Governor Copper Webb of Wisconsin and Ray Sheen from South Carolina, HCF Governor and Chair of the Donor Development Council. Although homeschooling was originally the primary method of education in the US, the public school movement replaced it in the 19th century. Modern homeschooling has grown up in the shadow of our nation's public school system and has been widely misunderstood by the masses. In some ways, its very flexibility and innovative nature, which allow homeschooling to be undertaken in so many different ways and tailored to each individual child, has been viewed as a mystery by those who cannot contemplate doing it themselves. There are many clear methods which are taught at homeschooling conferences around the country by experts in the field, however, and it is time to demystify this educational approach. An innovation center for homeschooling at a major university would promote growth and support for homeschooling and provide a home for research and study of the field of homeschooling. All of these activities are already being done in varying degrees all around the country, but this center would establish a nerve center or headquarters of sorts for these activities. The center would also create a focus for further development of the nationwide movement, as well as a focus for fundraising. This center may be established both physically and virtually at an established university. Schools of education around the country often have a specialty that they study and encourage. An example in the broader field of school choice is the University of Arkansas School of Education, which studies and promotes school choice in its Department of Education Reform, funded by the Walton Family Foundation and other school choice foundations. Homeschooling has no such attention from a major university, and we at the Homeschool Community Foundation believe that this field of study would benefit from such a center.
Dan, as you know, I'm an engineer and a scientist by profession. I spent a good part of my career working in the field of innovation. I've managed programs at both government and corporate research centers and was even part of a startup company a few years ago that was sponsored in part by a local innovation center. With the rapid change of technology today, a family homeschooling classroom could literally be anywhere and everywhere in the world. An innovation center will support research to create and study technologies and methodologies that would assist parents in the education of their children. And this is in all subjects, not just math and science, but also literature, history, geography, social studies, even art and physical education.
So Ray, what would an innovation center do?
An innovation center would conduct research to identify what works well when doing home education. Also, it can guide innovation in areas like education for special needs or physically disabled children. Further, it can sponsor research for methods and technologies that will lower the cost of home education and extend its reach to all parts of the globe. When we look at how much home education has changed in the past 20 years, I can't even imagine how it may look 20 years from now. An innovation center provides solid research to support the evolving methods and practices in home education. Now, I know that there is research being conducted today. In fact, the National Home Education Research Institute in Oregon is a great source for understanding the current home education landscape. I'm a big supporter of the work that they're doing, but this research is typically an analysis of what already exists, not research into what could be. It seeks to understand the homeschool landscape and environment as it exists today. That is important for policymakers and social scientists. An innovation center can do much more. Its research can support the creation of what home education will become.
I like that distinction of what already exists versus what could be. Copper, what do you see as the role of an innovation center that is dedicated to homeschooling?
Well, a homeschooling innovation center could take many different forms, just depending on the level of funding and who is hired to guide and manage the center. The vision will be influenced by the alliance, the university, and the supporters, but there are certain elements that we can identify. First, the physical location would be on a university campus, but much of the work can take place virtually, tying in experts from around the country and hiring on a contract basis when necessary.
Copper, is there a university that's expressed an interest in being the host?
Well, HCF is currently discussing a partnership with Grand Canyon University to locate this permanent physical and virtual homeschool academic excellence or innovation center at their campus in Phoenix, Arizona. And if funding was made available, a partnership between the National Alliance, HCF, and GCU could be an ideal fit. There would be benefits for all parties involved. The center would be affiliated with GCU and provide GCU with a clear connection to homeschooling as a means of attracting homeschool students to GCU. And Grand Canyon University students and alumni could staff the Innovation Center and its programs as they grow, and it could provide internships and research projects for students. Also, GCU has many favorable features that fit well with homeschooling, including offering a physical campus with 20,000 students, as well as a significant degree programs and online courses for 80,000 students. And that number is still growing.
So in this example, who would actually run the Innovation Center?
Well, the center would be controlled and managed by the Alliance and HCF based on the Alliance's expertise in homeschooling, with HCF taking primary responsibility for managing and fundraising the center. The center may be affiliated with or connected to GCU's School of Education, thus lending academic credibility to the center. There's a possibility that parents who have homeschooled their children and successfully documented their work could earn credits towards a BS or master's degree in elementary education or in mathematics education, English education, etc., and be certified to teach in public, private, or cyber schools upon completion. This Innovation Center would be the first in the country to study, foster, and promote homeschooling growth and innovation. That means supporting studies in training, technology, education methodology, teaching techniques and aids, best practices, a community platform, which is discussed in session 3 of this summit about the hub, and collaboration space. So let's discuss the practical impact of the center. Copper, what is one of the advantages that you can see for the homeschooling family from this center?
One possibility that I'm really excited about is a center providing coaching and teaching help for parents and tutors of homeschool students. It can cover all kinds of different subject matters and different learning styles, and provide additional resources for families with special needs students. Also, this center will support and fund the expansion of homeschooling resource centers around the country. These resource centers, such as the Family Educators Alliance of South Texas Resource and Retreat Center, that's located in San Antonio. And then in Vancouver, Washington, there's the Firmly Planted Homeschool Resource Center. And similar centers could be established through the Alliance-affiliated nonprofit organizations and other nonprofits. These resource centers would become the backbone of a nationwide homeschooling infrastructure. This idea is developed more fully in our earlier session 2 on HCF and grants for the Homeschool Community Foundation. And if you're still a little confused on what we're talking about with homeschool resource centers, you can also see video tours of existing homeschool resource centers under session 2. Now, moving on, another benefit of such a center would be a focus for strong nationwide public relations or good messaging for homeschooling, as well as a focus for funders that want to give larger donations to the movement. Currently, there are very few, if any, large projects benefiting the homeschooling community at large. Along those lines, HCF and the Innovation Center would provide grants to projects such as Schoolhouse Rocked. That's an exciting new documentary project which seeks to encourage and equip homeschool families to start strong and finish well with excellence. Now, I'm interested in the idea that the center may sponsor research into new technologies. So, Ray, can you tell us how you would see that working?
Sure. Keep in mind that research on homeschooling that is being conducted anywhere in the world can be coordinated by homeschool experts such as Dr. Brian Ray or Dr. Deborah Bell. They can ensure that the sociological research is done to appropriate standards and with the approved methods for that type of research. This center would also include a homeschool business and methodology incubator. This would be formed to help homeschooling parents, often the homeschooling moms, and others learn how to start and manage home businesses that are compatible with homeschooling, so that those parents who need to generate income while teaching can be helped. It would also offer a behavioral center to study behavioral issues and special needs in relation to homeschooling, providing advice to parents on techniques for addressing and working with challenging students and guidance on learning styles. And it could serve as a laboratory to evaluate new technologies and their effectiveness in the home education process. Oh, and one other thing is that it's very useful in an innovation center. The center may provide some physical collaboration space for meetings and other activities related to homeschooling. I've used this type of collaboration space in many occasions. It's really helpful when you get these people together. We're noodling over ideas and we come up with some fantastic ideas coming out of that kind of a space. Dan, I feel like we've covered a lot of different topics. How will the Innovation Center decide what to do first, and what does it take to operate this multifaceted center?
Well, Ray, we estimate that the basic annual budget will initially be $350,000. Now, of course, each individual activity, research, community platform, etc., will only be undertaken to the extent that funding is available for that activity. But if we have a funder who comes along and wants to fund all of the activities, that would be wonderful. Endowed chairs can also eventually be sought as the programs grow. For instance, a center fostering best practices for homeschooling nonprofits could also be established, providing fundraising assistance nationwide. A homeschooling nonprofit incubator could be created, or research into identifying the best home education approaches for special needs could be sponsored as well. The funding will dictate some of the direction and growth of this center.
As I think about it, the Center for Best Practices is a very interesting concept. You know, a center can be established to provide fundraising and best practices assistance for home education nonprofits nationwide, essentially becoming a homeschooling nonprofit incubator.
Right.
Now, these types of resource centers are used frequently, both in business and for nonprofit best practice sharing. So homeschooling nonprofits will benefit from a center dedicated to homeschooling nonprofits specifically. In addition to the local resource center concept, the Innovation Center can advise homeschoolers nationwide who seek its expertise. For instance, a remote call center could be established that can direct calls to the appropriate resource person or resource center anywhere around the country. Along that line, for some homeschool families, college and career counseling services are greatly needed. You know, unlike most public and private schools, homeschoolers normally don't have access to free college and career counseling. Again, the resource centers or this innovation center could assist them with that. Finally, an Innovation National Homeschool Student Center and an online student store, both a physical and virtual version of that, could include videos, games, entertainment, and many of the services that physical college campus centers provide. The homeschoolers currently have no such student center, and we could easily accommodate one of those in the Innovation Center.
For all of these reasons, the Homeschool Community Foundation invites you to consider joining with us and funding this exciting Innovation Center. And we would be happy to meet with you to discuss this project in further detail. Please contact Dan Meljanian to explore this project further. You can do so by visiting our website, homeschoolcf.org. That's homeschoolcf.org. Thanks so much for joining us.